sometime tomorrow night. We could see a movie. Be really nice. So I'll call you tomorrow. I'll sleep in tomorrow and then we maybe can do something. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye, little one.
When I decided to speak, I had a lot to say and many ways in which to say what I had to say.
A relationship is a relationship that has to be earned.
Let's get into some Black neurodivergent figures in history. Note, many of these individuals were never formally diagnosed due to Ray and his isms in medicine and psychology. First, we have Harriet Tubman. There was a possibility that she had both epilepsy and narcolepsy. She was an abolitionist and freedom fighter. Many historians believe she had temporal lobe epilepsy and possibly ADHD or autism. She experienced sudden sleep attacks likely linked to a severe head injury from childhood. Her intense focus, incredible memory, and ability to strategize complex escape routes have led some to believe she may have been neurodivergent. Just think of that, one of the greatest freedom fighters in history may have been neurodivergent, proving that our differences can be our strengths. Lewis Hamilton, a Formula One driver who has spoken openly about having ADHD and dyslexia. He struggled in school but hyper-focused on perfecting his racing technique. He's an advocate for mental health and diversity in sports. Lewis Hamilton is an example of Black neurodivergent excellence existing in every field, even in sports, where precision and focus are everything.
I'm free, and I know it. Don't wanna be and I show it.
Nina Simone, a legendary musician and civil rights activist. There was possible autism and sensory sensitivities. She had extreme sensitivity to sound and an obsessive focus on music from a young age.
At 6 months old, my mom said that I knew what notes were, and of course, on paper. And it scared her.
She struggled with emotional regulation and was often misunderstood for her bluntness and intensity.
I've had a couple of times on stage when I really felt free. And that's something else. That's really something else. Like I'll tell you what freedom is to me. No fear. I mean, really, no fear.
She felt alienated from others due to rigid social expectations and struggles with mental health.
They're confronted with what I am, inside and out, as honest as I can be. In this way, they have to see things about themselves immediately.
Nina Simone's unique brain made her music legendary. Her intensity and passion, often seen as difficult, were actually part of what made her a revolutionary artist.
I just sat down and wrote this song. And it's a very moving, violent song, because that's how I feel about the whole thing.
Have you ever felt like your emotional intensity was seen as a problem instead of a strength? I know it's something that I was called out for a lot growing up, and then even when I was seeking a diagnosis, there was a disagreement in her assessment. And when I responded and told her, I disagreed, she cut me off. And when I interrupted her back, since she interrupted me, she said, see, that's not what an autistic person would do. But as an artist, just like the next one we're about to discuss, I've learned to use that as fuel to put into my art.
Leaving the dance, choreographing the dance. You were up all night dancing.
Every day, and she didn't leave.
Michael Jackson undoubtedly was the king of pop. He possibly had autism, ADHD, or sensory processing disorder. Oddly enough, when I asked ChatGPT this question, I knew Michael Jackson was going to be on this list.
Can you close that door?
Your voice is very irritating.
I know, I hate this scream.
Sound like Carol Burnett.
He had an intense special interest in music, dance, and performance from childhood, spending countless hours perfecting his craft. He was highly sensitive to textures and fabrics, often wearing specific clothing that felt comfortable to him.
Michael Jackson often opted for China silk, a delicate and lightweight variety known for its smoothness and lustrous appearance. The soft and supple nature of charmeuse draped beautifully on his body, accentuating his stage presence and enhancing the overall aesthetic appeal of his wardrobe.
He struggled with social interactions and eye contact, often appearing shy or withdrawn in non-performance settings. He displayed echolalia-like speech patterns in interviews, sometimes repeating phrases or using scripted responses.
I'm going to ask you, so I'm going to ask you. I like it. Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet a nice, beautiful interview.
So like Curly the Deuce.
He created a controlled, fantasy-like environment at Neverland Ranch that allowed him to escape overwhelming social pressures. Michael Jackson's possible neurodivergence didn't stop him from becoming one of the most influential artists in history. His intense focus, sensory sensitivities, and unique way of seeing the world contributed to his ability to revolutionize music, dance, and visual storytelling. However, his struggles with social expectations and masking show just how difficult it can be for neurodivergent people, especially Black men, to navigate fame and public scrutiny.
He said, nothing comes before my art. For him, his art was sacred. He didn't care about anything else but that. What he had to do was the most important thing.
Richard Nathaniel Wright was an American author of novels, short stories, poems, and nonfiction. He possibly had autism and hyperlexia. He's the author of Black Boy, A Native Son. Richard Wright had an obsessive interest in reading and writing from childhood, often isolating himself to focus on books. He struggled with understanding social norms and often felt disconnected from both Black and white communities. His writing was deeply analytical, structured, and hyper-focused on justice and racial identity. His hyperlexia and deep analytical mind helped shape Black literature and expose racial injustice. Have you ever felt like you understood the world better through books or art than through social interaction? Lewis Latimer. He was an inventor and an engineer. He possibly had autism or ADHD. Lewis Latimer was a self-taught draftsman and engineer who helped patent the modern light bulb and improved Edison's designs. He had strong pattern recognition and could break down complex technical problems with ease. Latimer preferred working alone and intensely focused on his inventions, similar to many autistic engineers today. I'm not an engineer, but I can relate. Latimer's story challenges the stereotype that Black people haven't contributed to STEM. His neurodivergence may have fueled his innovative mind.
When I'm with a sister friend or brother friend, I'm okay. But when I'm with strangers and in front of people, I'm never okay. I'm wondering, will I be okay?
Up next, we have the late, great Maya Angelou. She was a poet and an activist. There was a possibility that she had select mutism, autism, or PTSD. Dr. Angelou stopped speaking for almost 5 years after experiencing trauma, which could indicate selective mutism, common in autistic individuals.
And I thought, my voice killed that man. And that my voice was so evil that if I put it out, it could kill anybody. You see? So I just
stop talking.
Yep.
She expressed herself primarily through writing and poetry, hyper-focusing on words as a form of communication.
I memorized James Weldon Johnson, Paul Laurence Dunbar, County Cullen, and Langston Hughes. I memorized Shakespeare, whole plays, 50 sonnets. I memorized Edgar Allan Poe, all the poetry, never having heard it. I had Longfellow, I had Guy de Maupassant, I had Balzac, Rudyard Kipling. I mean, it was a Catholic kind of reading and Catholic kind of story. When I decided to speak, I had a lot to say and many ways in which to say what I had to say.
She often spoke about feeling like an outsider and being deeply observant of the world. Dr. Angelou's neurodivergence may have helped contribute to her unique writing style and deep emotional insight. Do you ever feel more comfortable expressing yourself through writing or art rather than talking? I do.
Eartha Kit, she ain't bald. You don't know Eartha like I do.
A man has always wanted to lay me down, but he never wanted to pick me up.
Eartha Kitt. She was a performer and an activist. She was possibly autistic or had ADHD, or both. Eartha Kitt was known for her blunt, unfiltered speech and refusal to conform to social expectations.
Stupid. A man comes into my life and I have to compromise? For what? A relationship is a relationship that has to be earned, not to compromise for.
She had an intense passion for performing, hyper-focusing on music, dance, and acting from a young age. She described feeling socially isolated and misunderstood even among her peers. Her boldness, passion, and refusal to mask made her a cultural icon. Have you ever been called too much or too intense just for being yourself?
When I was 12, I saw a terrible movie called Devil Girl from Mars, one of those sad 1950s movies. And I turned off the television and said to myself, I can write a better story than that. And from what I've heard, that's the way a great many people start writing. Just the idea that what they're seeing is so awful, they can do better.
Octavia Butler was a sci-fi author. It was a possibility that she had autism and ADHD. She was deeply introverted and socially anxious, often preferring books over people.
With the white-collar job, you go in, you have to smile, you have to dress nicely, you have to pretend you're having a good time. I discovered that from doing all that I really did like the early morning hours. So I get up at around, like I said, around 3, and I do a little bit of reading just to wake up. Sit there and drink a cup of coffee. And then I write and do most of my creative work early in the morning, and I generally take a nap. That's one of the things that I could never do when I was working for other people. I think it is better for me because I'm generally not very creative, but I can use what I'm pulling out of the research to suggest ideas, for instance. That's what I'm good at in the afternoon.
She had obsessive interests in science fiction and world building, which are common among autistic individuals.
Well, it's a freedom. It's a way of doing anything you want. There are all sorts of walls around other genres. There are no real walls around science fiction. We can build them, but they're not there naturally.
She wrote about outsiders, nonverbal communication, and people struggling to fit into society, themes deeply related to neurodivergent individuals.
A lot of my early writing had to do with my own feelings of powerlessness. So I dealt often with power, with what it did to people, what they did with it when they got it.
Octavia's mind imagined entire worlds, proving that neurodivergence can be a creative superpower. Do you relate to stories where the main character feels like an outsider? I usually can relate to the villain myself, especially if there's someone who's been ignored or is dealing with feeling like they're not being heard. Florence Flojo Griffith Joyner was a track and field icon who possibly had ADHD or sensory sensitivities. Flojo was known for her hyperactivity and explosive energy, which fueled her success in sprinting. She designed her own unique outfits with specific textures and style, possibly due to sensory sensitivities. She became hyper-focused on perfecting her technique, a common trait among ADHD and autistic athletes. Doesn't that sound like someone we mentioned earlier? Flojo's neurodivergence may have helped her push boundaries in both athletics and fashion.
Joe's gonna come out smoking, and I ain't gonna be joking. I'll be pecking and a-poking, pouring water on his smoking. Then this might shock and amaze you, but I will destroy Joe Frazier. Some people say, you better watch Joe Frazier, he's awful strong. I said, tell him to try band roll-on. That's deodorant.
Muhammad Ali, a boxing champion and activist.
My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother or some poor hungry people in the mud for big powerful America and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger.
Ali was believed to have ADHD and dyslexia. He struggled in school and had difficulty reading and writing, which may indicate dyslexia. He had a sharp, quick-witted mind and hyperverbal tendencies, a common ADHD trait. He used this ability to hyperfocus to master boxing techniques and become one of the greatest athletes of all time. Ali proved that neurodivergent Black people can redefine greatness in any field, even in a sport that demands discipline and strategy. What about you? Do you think being neurodivergent can give people an edge in competitive fields? What about, say, recognizing an opponent's patterns, or if they're gonna go to the left or the right, or if they always do a certain thing? These people prove that Black neurodivergent people have always shaped history, even when misunderstood. Their stories prove that neurodivergence isn't just the whites thing. For my fellow Black neurodiverse people, be kind to yourself. If you're still figuring it out, be kind to yourself. If you struggle with this new discovery of self, trying to still apply the old rules to the new you, be kinder to yourself.